What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It, your movie podcast for reboots, remakes, sequels, and adaptations, asking why we keep retelling these stories over and over again, and if there's any thematic reason or audience-based reason to do so. As always, I am your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And this week we are talking about the much anticipated sequel to Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic 3, which is just spun into theaters because we all have to say things with puns now. We can't just
Fun.
be it's here. It raced to the box office and collected rings and all the other Sonic-y based things and habits that happen. But it is out now, the third in it after a spinoff with Knuckles on Paramount Plus. We are introducing Shadow as Keanu Reeves, a fan favorite of the games. We are bringing back Ben Schwartz and everybody else, and we're in it now. It's so much fun. Jim Carrey has apparently come out of retirement, but who knows if that'll be forever.
Yeah, collecting those checks.
Yep, eventually he'll put on a Wizards jersey just like Jordan and he'll do it again. But I love that this was the script. When he retired, it was like maybe if an amazing story comes by. And then he was like, "Have you read this Sonic 3 script? It's amazing."
This is the one.
But who knows? I mean, he's also said other things as much as jokes saying I'm back because I spent too much money. He's made a probably his most serious one where he's like, "Well, I had never worked with Keanu Reeves. I want to go work with Keanu Reeves. It's
And this is a
Keanu
weird
Reeves."
version of this because, like, you technically still haven't. You worked with his voice.
I mean, if we could all work with Keanu Reeves' voice, wouldn't
That's
we?
true. That's a very nice voice.
But what did you think, Terrence?
Um, so it's a funny thing with. I feel like the Sonic series has become sort of what I think I wanted the Transformers movies to be, in that first one was very much a kid's film. It was like a kid's family film, and it sort of has grown up and become like if you were six when that first one came out, you're probably 11 now, and it sort of has grown up and become a family comedy, that first one, to a more comedy action where you still had a lot of the stuff from the first one, but you got a little bit more action. That wedding sequence became a lot of comedy in that movie. And then this one is like, cool, we're going to turn that comedy down to about a 10. Other than Jim Carrey, he's the only one going to do it. Hell, we're not even going to really have the humans. And now we're just in it Sonic wise. And I was like, oh, this this is insane. This is an action spectacle. Like this movie is phenomenal. Like my mouth is dropped about halfway through. I was like, there are no humans and they are just going for it. And I am here for it. This started reminding me of watching the Sonic Saturday morning cartoons, the playing all the Sonic games, Sonic CD, which we get in at the end of this. But like all of this, I felt, oh, they're going for it. They're doing it all well. And it's funny, I think because Jeff Fowler's involved in all three and had his hand in with Knuckles, is that even with us sort of oddly enough shifting tones and genres as we go from one, two to three, it all still feels like it's in the same world. Nothing feels like it's jarring enough where it's like, ah, this is a very different movie from this. They are, but only when you sort of separate them. When you put it all together, it's like, no, this still all feels like one big film, like it's all lived in the world. And I think it's a really smart thing for the third one. You've built his family up enough. You've dealt with Sonic. Now let's do the mirror versions of them. Let's look at each other. If they both come from the same point, Sonic and Shadow come from the same point, deal with loss. But there's nobody to love on Sonic. I mean, love on Shadow. But there are people to love on Sonic. They become very different people. And just to see that play out, I was like, oh. Not only are you giving me all my Sonic feel goods and like all my great action beats, you're also telling a really good story that still has heart to it. And it's amazing that somehow this Sonic series has become I look forward to it. Like now I'm like, oh, where's Sonic 4 at? Like it's become that big of a franchise for me. Even though it looks like in this, I would imagine that we're probably going to have, especially with the post credits that we get at the end of this, I feel like we're going to get into a world where Sonic 4 may have almost like one human in it. Like it might just be all, and I'm okay with that. Like I think we've earned that right with this world. But I had a blast with this movie, smiling from ear to ear, stayed all the way through the credits, and I was like, somehow this kids family film is turning into this massive franchise that now I just want injected into my veins all the time.
I mean, they're doing a really good job of maintaining everybody who's grown up with Sonic. Like my dad and I played Sonic together. My mom
Hmm.
and I played Sonic together. Everybody in my family loves this character. Obviously I'm 35 and I'm still just like, yes, please. Like
Right?
it's rare enough that I like going to movies alone. It's definitely rarer that I like going to kids films alone.
Correct.
but just like I'm just driving back from a golf course to see it. I'm playing Crush 40's Live and Learn from the game in my car, and I'm just like, I don't care how alone I am. This I have been waiting. I didn't even know how badly I was waiting for this moment until now. And it's so funny seeing everybody who grew up with comic books and other franchises, and not that I didn't, but like I was so young when I got Spider-Man and Batman. I never really considered the Pokemon and the Marios and the Sonics and these video games that I love to suddenly be here and be the thing that I'm like sprinting to get to the theater. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, if you want the GameCube version of it, was by far one of my favorite things to play and was such a cool, weird transition for Sonic. Because when you look at that 2D to 3D switch, most people, at least at the time, it's very easy to look back at it with rose colored glasses. But I remember everyone doing, they're like, well, Mario 64 is amazing. And Donkey Kong 64 has some issues, but it's amazing. And Sonic Adventure is a mess. And you're too fast to stay on the track. And the camera's wonky. And all these different characters don't play that well. And suddenly you're dropped into this weird world where there's humans and Sonic, which I guess was always the idea. And a translation error caused Mobius to be a thing in the Sega games instead of Earth, but whatever. Um, and it's strange, but it worked really well because the story was interesting and the characters were interesting and some of the dialogue was cheesy, but it worked.
Hmm.
And it never really, to your point about the movies keeping a tone, they always had this weird tone of like, it's fast, it's crazy, it's a little anime-esque. We're
Hmm.
gonna get all the stones, we're gonna go full Super Saiyan, and we're gonna fight the big bad, and we're gonna go home and like hang out with our friends. And that's how we're gonna do this forever.
Right.
Um, and it's I always kind of said I was like, I feel like the Mario games were better games.
Hmm.
But Sonic did something Mario never really tried to do, which was go, let's give him a personality, let's give him a story, let's add stakes, let's at least try to change it up every time. I love the
Yeah.
Mario games, but it is the princess is captured. Now she's captured on Isle Delfino. Now she's
Now
captured
she's
in
captured here.
space.
Yeah.
And Sonic, while it is always go get the shiny rocks and go Super Saiyan, it is like, well, this thing came out of the Master Emerald. So the floating island that Knuckles is on fell from the sky and made these giant waves. And now there's this weird chaos creature. And oh, it turns out that Robotnik's dad made the ultimate life form to save his granddaughter's life. And now he's here and he looks like Sonic. And there's this space station hidden and it's going to blow up half the moon. And now we're going to do Metal Sonic is back and transforming because he thinks he's really Sonic and better. And now Sonic's a werewolf. And now Silver's here from the future. And we're just always trying new
Up in the ante.
weird
Yeah.
things. And it keeps it fun. Like it is
Hmm.
sort of weird to be like, yeah, what nonsense are they going to throw at me this time? What
Yeah.
weird shit that I have to explain to somebody am I going to do? Like it's so funny explaining this movie to someone who doesn't know the games and being like, okay, so you have to understand.
Yeah.
Sonic, at some point in the Archie comics and in the video games and over here, he kind of got more like mature. And so they made this game where like Robotnik's dad has a, he has a his grandfather does this really creepy, weird, like Hannibal Lecter video of how he's going to destroy the earth because this evil army corporation he blames his granddaughter's death on them. And so, Gun is bad. So he created the ultimate life form to save her, and he can harness the power of Chaos Emeralds. And then he wakes up because Robotnik is bad. And all he can remember is, I told Maria I was going to get revenge on them. And then he crosses paths with Sonic, and then they go to space. And then it turns out that Maria's last wish wasn't for revenge, it was to give everyone on Earth a chance to be happy. So while they're fighting this giant lizard in the sky, he, changes his mind and sacrifices himself. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
So here we are. Like,
And and then you're like, now they're gonna do that in film form. You're like, whoa, okay.
and you're right. And they keep so many things in it that are there. And they do what I think Marvel does really well of like, we're going to keep the core of the
We're
characters.
gonna
We're
tweak.
not going to have the bio lizard hidden inside of the
Right.
arc. We are going to see it in a fun, like monster of the week, black and white movie.
Yeah,
That was a nice little Easter egg, as
it
much as I
was.
wanted to see the bio lizard. We're going to do we're going to give him the gun and put him on the motorcycle because that's a fun nod to when
That's a
Sega
nice
was like, give him a machine gun.
weapons.
They didn't all work, but we took
Yeah.
some swings. But like Keanu Reeves is just like weight adds so much to this.
There's a lot of gravitas because Sonic is so, and Schwartz's voice is so light, having him being so weight and serious. Because Idris Elba's voice is weighty, but they made Knuckles a little bit kind of like the dumb brute, whereas Shadow's just like I'm about that business. So it's good to sort of have that juxtaposition, and just his weight alone makes the film feel more serious. Like just him.
And even the way they animate Shadow, like I notice every now and then watching, I was like, oh, he's like kind of like talking half out of his mouth sometimes, so it looks like he's almost injured. And like
Hmm.
it's so weird to say this about like a cartoon hedgehog, but it's like he looks older
Yeah.
somehow. Like there's more texture around his mouth, and just kind of the way he holds himself is just very detailed and unique. And
Hmm.
it does suddenly make you kind of have this, oh, we're not on a road trip with James Marsden
Yeah.
anymore.
Like
We're
those, and
not.
it very much is like those are kids. That's a grown man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just man, it's like when the Green Ranger first showed up and just rocked him in the Megazord when he just comes in and you're like, oh, you didn't have to.
Like, why are you in here?
Shadow, you didn't have to go this hard on that. Those were children. You just Tails didn't even have a chance. You just showed up and kicked that fox in the back of the head. It's and then you flew Sonic into the air like the end of
And
Iron
just
Man.
punched him. Like, this seems excessive.
And like and it is crazy because the action just goes so high. And you're
Hmm.
right. It ages with its audience. Like if you were 7, 8, 5 even, you're now probably old enough to see this because
Hmm.
I don't know, I was 10 when the first Pokemon movie came out and Mewtwo also broke out of a tube and killed a bunch of people.
I'm
That was some heavy shit.
I'm actually glad that I saw this before because I was contemplating taking my 4-year-old to see this, and now I'm like, oh no, 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 no. He saw Sonic 1 and loved it, but I'm like, oh, he has to age up because this movie is very different than Sonic 1.
Yeah, and it's I mean, and they do keep some of the humor, some of
They
the
do.
corniness, which you want. I mean, like these are Sonic games, and I
Right.
love them, but like, let's not pretend that some of that dialogue wasn't silly. When he's
Yeah.
about to fight Shadow in the Ark for the last time, and Shadow's like, I don't understand who you are. What you see is what you get. I
Mm.
just love adventure. And it's like, that's
Yeah.
a weird thing to
That's
say
that's a
as
weird
you,
thing to say when
there's a
you're running
laser
to
that's
like
about to
space.
shoot the planet away,
Right.
Sonic. Like,
Yeah.
that would be like
Like,
if in Star
I hear.
Wars, if Palpatine was like, only at the end do you understand. And Luke was like, I love playtime. Like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah.
So you do keep the spirit of those characters, but it was fun challenging Sonic with that. Like we didn't
Hmm.
really ever have a moment for him, and to like knock out James Marsden, I was so sure we were gonna kill him. I said him when we
I
did our
did
Sonic
too.
2
I thought it was
podcast.
happening. I was like,
I was
there's a
like,
chance
we're
that
gonna
like
do
and it
it.
looked like it was happening. We looked like we were there.
There's a part of me that's like originally they killed him, and then somebody
Yeah,
was
and
like,
they're
"You
like, you you
can't
can't
do
kill
it
him.
yet." The next
Yeah,
one, maybe.
they might. Because it seems like they have pushed. I mean, the humans are like Tika and Marsden's characters are basically on the bookends of this movie. They have a small little piece in the middle. More so probably just to get Natasha and Shamar Moore back on screen, just because they're not in this movie
They're
at
not
all
there at all.
until that piece, which is a cool way to bring them in because the sister, I could watch her do anything like Natasha
Oh
or anything
yeah,
when she's
she's
on screen. I'm
great.
like,
She should be in the Shadow spinoff. That's who she should hang out
yes.
with. If and when we get a
um,
Shadow Paramount show.
exactly. So like I think they're still like, hey, we want to play with these guys, but we're getting to this world getting so much larger where the humans aren't a thing. And this very much felt like, I mean, who knows what Jim Carrey does because he puts one foot in, one foot out, but this very much feels like his swan song for Robotnik, mainly because there's a piece where also the heroes help him, and so it's kind of hard to make him do a complete about face and go back to being the bad guy again, at least for a film. I think whatever we do for Sonic 4 probably won't have Robotnik, and then maybe somewhere in there they're like, but he's still around at the very end. But I think he's going to take a break because I feel like this felt like the sort of perfect catharsis to close out his series, his story, mainly because he says goodbye to his assistant. Which, if
Yeah.
you give the assistant that moment, you're saying, all right, he's going away. Like that's it for him.
You also, as much as I love all three of these movies, you can't do the is Robotnik dead? No, he's not twice.
Like yeah,
Like
yeah,
you just can't.
yeah.
Um, and this was a good sign off. And it is interesting to think about what Sonic will look like without Robotnik.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's very easy to just make the assistant him. I
Him, yeah.
mean, clearly we'll get to the post-credit scene, so I guess spoilers for it, but clearly Metal Sonic's out and about.
Yeah.
That could easily be your villain for the next two,
And you don't,
three.
yeah, and you don't need to have a humanoid villain for like they can go for a couple of things. The metallic run of Sonic is pretty
I
massive. Yeah.
candidly wouldn't mind if we even changed it a little bit and we were like, maybe Metal Sonic is just voiced by Jim Carrey, and we kind of are like, there's an AI in him. This is the
Hmm.
Jarvis voice, and that's how we're going to do this. That, as different as that would
Yeah.
be very fun
It would. It would.
and unique. It's cool that they didn't have those two characters talk. It's almost a bummer because I liked that we had Tails talk at the end of one, and then
We
everyone was like,
did.
"No, keep that.
Yeah.
Don't get
Yeah.
somebody famous. Keep the voice actors from the TV
Keep the
shows."
same actors we always have. Yeah.
Uh,
It was weird to not have Amy or either of the Metal Sonics talk. But I was like, oh, they're just not there yet. Like we don't
yeah, they don't want
and we don't
to.
want to put ourselves in a corner where we have to get attached to this.
These are now huge movies.
Yeah.
They now have to,
Yeah.
get
Then just
somebody of
power the
weight
earth
to
and we
them.
will get someone to do this. But it's
Josh Brolin as Metal Sonic.
and I wonder if they because they do a Josh Brolin does everything.
Yes.
I do wonder if they go the route of Amy being like a super fangirl because if this seems like it's we've reached the Sonic CD era of this, and if they do, that's going to be kind of cool to see that Sonic's become so big and known that Amy's sort of like, oh my god, you're the greatest person ever. Like I want to follow you to the end of the world.
I mean, it would almost make sense to make her the connective tissue back to their other world and have it
Hmm.
be like, we've been watching you. I'm
Right.
such a fan.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. And you could very easily have her and Metal Sonic connected in some way. I do like that we kind of immediately introduced her as like not a damsel in distress. She smokes like four of those robots and lands. So
Because
I
that was part of the
like,
problem with the Sonic CD. Like she was very much she was the fangirl, but she was also always in peril. Where as we've gone along, she's still fond of Sonic, but she's gotten more a little bit in control of fighting for herself. And I'm glad that we're starting off there
yeah, we're going to
because you
kick it
don't want to put
off.
the only girl on the team to be
I mean, as
that's
much as I really am still banking, I'm like, we still need Rouge. But there's still so many characters. I want Rouge
yeah
to show up. I want
yeah
Cream. I want all of them. I want the Chaotix. I am now just like, yeah, all of it. Just
dump
to
them all in
go.
here.
Just
Yeah,
show
just
me.
go
Yeah,
for it.
go nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, really solid arcs for. It's amazing how impressive they can do that in this movie because you really do feel bad for Shadow and Maria and some of the stuff they changed. She's not sick, at least not that
Mhm.
we know of. That may have also come to fruition later in the
It could,
games, if I remember
yeah,
right.
she could have been. We really don't get a read of
Yeah.
why she's there other than just being around her grandfather. Yeah,
But Shadow also lands instead of being created. So
right.
he's there. But that also sets up Black Doom and the Shadow
Hmm.
game. And so that you have that tissue. So kind of having this like, why is he the ultimate life form question isn't quite there as much.
Right.
And I like that angle. So I do sort of hope we play with it later, but changing it from just like this space station's being closed and blowing up and she launches them out of it to like someone fired when they weren't supposed to fire and created
Hmm.
this accident is a much more weighted scene.
It
Like even
does.
in that movie, just seeing them like run after this fun montage of them skating together and
Yeah,
talking
like
and
then so heartfelt to then just punches in the gut, and it also then comes back when Shadow mistakenly shoots James Marsden's character.
ooh.
Um, he has that moment like, oh crap, I just literally just did the exact same thing to him.
And it's a good moment too, because it's not just like, oh, I broke it. Because before Sonic even gets there, he's like, wait, what? That's not the person. That's not who I wanted to hurt. That's
Right.
not. So you get this complicated code
Yeah.
almost of him just being like, wait,
He's
that's not.
like I wanted to hurt the person, but I thought that was the colonel. Like I didn't. That's my bad. I didn't. And then seeing Sonic flip and get pissed, he immediately went back into like, which people do when you are met with anger. There, he goes back into anger mode. Like, well, sorry, bruh. It is what it is at this point. I
Yep.
was like, oh, this is about to get messy, and it
I.
does, and it's glorious.
Oh, it's awesome. Give me
Yeah.
the emerald. Screw both of you. You
Yeah.
get a great Knuckles moment of like part of this oath was us trusting each other, so fine.
Yeah.
But like even when they're in space fighting and you have this supersonic and super shadow moment when Shadow is just like, I thought you had friends. I thought you had a team. What kind of person does this? Who abandons somebody? Like suddenly
Yeah.
Shadow has this like,
Like
no, 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 you're the bad
you are now
person.
becoming, yeah, I know why I'm here. You don't have a reason to be doing
Yep.
this.
I
You
thought
have
you
a
had
crew. You
people.
have
You
a
left
family.
them.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
You're choosing to be an a-hole. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that. I loved even just some of those like I've been sitting for 50 years. This is who I am. Like you get these great traumatic moments. Even the Robotnik's shared arc
Hmm.
comes to a great just like ooh dagger. I got up to go to
Yeah.
the bathroom and turned around. I'm glad I did because I caught that like oh son, you're no Maria. And I was like
Yeah.
oh,
Oh.
why is this in a children's film?
Yeah.
That
Oh
was
yeah.
such a great all of that. The minute they go super, the third act of this
The
entire
third act
movie.
of this movie is just like
Oh my god.
just put it in my veins. I was like, oh, this is glorious.
They're just in space fighting this. The
Yeah.
just the speedy switches, Tails and Knuckles showing up, even just like Tails jumping into space, Knuckles
Like
behind them.
going head first, like I got him, and then he couldn't get the ring, and Knuckles like follow behind him. I was like, oh, this is all glorious. Like every piece of this is like this is what I need. This
We
is
give Jim
fantastic.
Carrey his monologue, which I mean, to be fair, I can't think of any other like death monologues he's given in his career.
But that was
So
a
I could see him being like, "Yep, I'm coming out of
that's
retirement to
it.
do
Yeah,
this."
yeah, like that was a good send off, saying his goodbyes, doing his he, and this is what makes me think this is the end even more because he was going back to things that he said in the very first film,
I love the
tying it
way
all
you
together.
make them.
Yeah, I was like, oh,
Yeah, that was a really oh god, it was I like already like would it go again?
yeah, like it's just a
Um
fun experience, and I think what I genuinely enjoyed because I thought the team itself is getting large. I love that Shadow is still present, but not with them,
I mean
and
I
because he would be very much not fit with them because he's a grown, like I said, he's a grown man compared to them being children.
I wonder what we'll do with that because you know clearly the story of the games was he falls to earth and dies and then he was popular and they went oh no now
Wait a
what
minute, we've made a mistake.
and we do Sonic Heroes and we do an overly complicated albeit I really enjoyed it. Is he real? Is he a clone? Is he a robot? Um, for those who don't know, the only way you actually get an answer to that is if you fight the final boss of Shadow the Hedgehog for like 10 minutes until Robotnik throws out a throwaway line, just being like, you are the original Shadow. I revived you. That's it. That's how we resolved it. You
That's
might not
the
even see it. I didn't know this until recently when I saw it on TikTok, and I've got 100% in almost all of those games.
yeah,
Um, so it'll be interesting if they do a like, oh, he doesn't know who he is, but you could do this in so many places now. You could give him a Paramount Plus show and introduce
hmm
Rouge and Omega there and have them go on their little journey of figuring that out. You could just toss him into the third act of the
right
Metal Sonic movie.
movie.
But it is, yeah, it's getting bigger and bigger, which ironically was a
I imagine
problem that
you
the games
don't.
had.
Yeah, you got to a point where it's like now we're too large. We need to scale this back down. I do think you also with it's a small part, but it's Kristen Ritter and who's recognizable face. I think if you're going to continue this, she might be the one human that because she's a part of the military, like a part of gun, she's probably going to be around for a bit.
I also had that thought because I was like, what a weird,
It's a
like she's
weird
in
person
maybe
to
three scenes.
correct. Like she's at the very beginning, like, oh, she's gonna be around a while, and then she goes disappears till the entire third till the end of the movie. I'm like, oh, that's a too recognizable of a name to just give her a bit. I was like, she must have been there must have been something in the pipeline like Gun's going to be around a while. You're in it.
I mean, yeah, my assumption is that if Robotnik falls to the background, we make Gun the main villain of this. So you could very easily have it be like Gun created Metal Sonic
Right.
Go
Yeah.
and make Kristen Ritter the villain of that, the face of that. That'll be a very interesting kind of path to go because it is funny to pick somebody of that kind of gravitas
Like
and
yeah. Like I'm like
not
that's a heavy name and like she it's just weird to have her deliver and just be there as a bit character. I was like there has to be something more to this.
yeah, I think so. And I think that brings us into kind of the adaptation side of it. And we touched on it a bit of how it pushes this story forward, which I think we agree it does very well. We evolve
Yeah.
the character, we grow, we never really lose sight of it. How do you think it adapted like Shadow himself as a character in his
I
story? Was there
love
anything you wanted to see?
I love the adaptation. I think it does a really smart idea of blending. It gets the majority of the beats of the game correct. It's almost a one to one. They have to tweak some things because of the world they sort of have already set up. But what they change or what they tweak, I think it's bad. It's for a digestible, uh, maybe not as inundated with Sonic audience. I think it does enough of the things to sort of bridge what the game did and what we have sort of expected of this universe, and puts it into a more palatable plate that I think at the end of the day, I think it lands, and I think it tells a story, and I feel like Shadow. I now want more of him. Like I kind of want them to do the Knuckles treatment with him.
Oh, I mean, that is, I want that way more than a season two of Knuckles now. And I would
Same.
still take a season two of
I would
Knuckles,
take both,
but
but I'd rather
I
Shadow. Yeah.
really, because I mean, they did so much lore for him in the games and the comics. Like they just kept
Hmm.
adding and adding and adding. And it is, I think, the 20th, 30th, I can't be that old of when he was 20th anniversary of when he was first
20th. Yeah.
introduced.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it would almost make sense to kind of keep pushing this character. And you have Keanu Reeves. I mean, everybody
Right.
loves Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
I agree. I think we tell a really good story. I think we adapt so much of his like tragedy well, and so much of kind of his arc, which is, it's very Doctor Who of you always have a choice. It's
Hmm.
very David Tennant and his daughter, and killing it
Yeah.
infects you after a while. But
Yeah.
I think a lot more of his arc becomes like the big question becomes who is he, and they mean it in a very literal clone original
Hmm.
robot sense, but it gets into almost a more like, well, who are you now? We've taken away this concept of the ultimate life form. We took away Maria, we took away Ivo, we took away Gerald. What is your own
What do
agency
you
as a person? What do you stand
exactly
for?
like? What do you stand for now that all of this has been removed? Yeah,
And I think that that makes for really good television. Like
it does.
I think that's a story and a theme that makes for great
Also being
miniseries.
removed from the world for 50 years, like he went immediately into this fight, so he's not seeing the changes of this world. He doesn't know what this is, so this is all going to be sort of new for him. And now, to your point, the main thread that he had to go through is gone. So what? Yeah, what does that do for him in this new world? It's so much to sort of mine and play with.
I do really wish, and as perfect as it was, I really would have liked one flashback to Maria having the like, this is what you promised me. I would have enjoyed having that moment.
Yeah,
Granted, it's harder to do in a movie with a child. Um, so it's a little bit harder to just
yeah,
watch someone die.
yeah.
But I was kind of waiting for the like, I promised them revenge line. And
Hmm.
then having the like, give them the chance to be happy, give them the chance to make these choices. Because we did use a direct line. We did the no food or movies. I'm out of here, jumping out of the helicopter, which I loved. As corny and kind of weird as it was, I
The
was
timing
like,
of it, I was like,
yay! I
yeah.
was in the wrong theater. That theater was full, and it was like I applauded at Live and Learn. I applauded when they crossed paths. I was like, it's
Oh,
just me and the guy next to me,
the
just me and
cross
the guy next
paths
to
got
me.
me a nice. I was like, yeah, and I was, oh crap,
Oh,
I
no one
should not
else?
have.
No one
No,
wants to do this with me? Okay.
fair, fair.
I definitely had three times where I was like, yeah, all right, okay, we're not. Neat, neat, neat. Just me and the dude next to me. Just this big super fan, right? Super nice guy. It might be the first time after a movie I've like made a friend where he was like, man, what'd you think? I loved that. I was like, oh my God, yes. Do you want to talk about it while we wait for the post credit scenes?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just, oh man, just so much fun.
Yeah.
But I do, yeah, that's a little part I wanted. I would have really liked because I loved that weird old message that you get from Gerald Robotnik in the game where he's just strapped into that. I was sort of waiting for like an old tape like that, but that's almost a horror beat. Um, we do hit the moon. It's not as a warning shot, but we
No.
do cut the
Yeah.
moon. I was
Yeah.
very happy about that. And it did do one of my favorite setup jokes of the like, don't worry, I've got this. You cut the moon. Why would you do that? It's a very, very Anchorman one of you woke the bears. Why
Yeah.
would you do that? Otherwise, yeah, like no notes. We got him on the
No.
bike. We did the Akira slide. We gave him a stupid gun.
Yeah.
Everything that I wanted
They
and
hit
didn't.
all the beats and visual beats and emotional beats that I wanted them to do with Shadow. and without taking away from Sonic, it's still giving Sonic an arc, which is I think impressive to do. Like you do a whole beginning, middle, and end for Shadow, but also still do give that to Sonic as well.
Everyone got a good moment. Even
Yeah,
Tails having his like, we're a team. I'm the tech guy. Knuckles is the muscle, and Sonic.
yeah,
That's what makes this work. We're friends. We're partners. And then it makes it hit. But Sonic's like, fuck all y'all.
exactly.
I'm going to space.
Deuces.
Like, I want revenge. Um, yeah, I think we touched on my other little notes. We did the at that. We talked about if it serves all of the fans and making it darker themes. I think it does
Yeah.
pretty well. So I guess the last thing to talk about, which maybe you're not, I am a little bit. Are we surprised that it beat Mufasa at the box office?
No, look. I think that first Lion King did really well because it was the Lion King. I don't think anybody really liked that film as far as it was good. The music was good. Everything hit the beats, but seeing live action, quote unquote, animals is jarring compared to like why it just doesn't work. And so I don't think anybody really had a rush out to go like, let me go see what Mufasa is talking about. Especially since we probably have seen Lion King movies that have sort of told us this story differently in better animated form. So like going to Mufasa is like, I don't. That's not a story that I people wanted to have told. Whereas Sonic, I think seeing something new, seeing something with shadows, seeing something like that was an audience that people would grow to. Like, and I it doesn't surprise me, and I think the ratings aren't terrible for Mufasa, but it's still one of those ones where they're like, what's the
Why are
point
we
of this?
here? Yeah.
Yeah, what's the point of this?
Yeah, it is interesting to think about because I definitely at first when they announced it was like, oh, I don't know, that Disney machine, it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
But even more interesting now because you said it, I just thought of it, the live action piece of it. I mean, this Sonic is always going to have the shadow of Ugly Sonic behind it and trying to make him fit in this
Woo!
world and then eventually going, no, make him look the
No.
way, get everyone's friend in there. That's what they want
Yeah.
to see.
And so
And it,
realism doesn't have to don't have to do that.
yeah. And it really does now make the Lion King's photorealism impressive, but like
But
that's not my buddy Simba.
I
That's
need
not my
Simba to
buddy.
emote like
Like
when Simba's dad dies in that first movie, I need to feel that. And what I just saw was a lion like not emoting at all, which is odd,
especially when
juxtaposed to what we're supposed to feel.
your voice actors are so talented. Like I don't
Yeah,
think I'll ever because and I liked the first Lion King a lot, but I'll never forget hearing the toucan talk at first and being like, oh, this is so weird because he's so animated in his voice and the beak is just
it's
going
just
up
like
and down.
yeah,
It's very
it's it's a
strange.
jarring thing. It's almost like it's not uncanny valley, but it's a version of that because the voice doesn't quite match what's happening there. Whereas with Sonic, because they've made it so kind of like the game cutesy and whatnot, I feel like a Lion King probably would have been served better. Like let's just do a live act, like make the lion live photorealistic, but make it look like Simba as
Give it
opposed
some
to
style, you
yeah.
know? There's something about photorealism where it's like, yeah, cool. It looks like a photo of Africa. You did
But
it.
I didn't
Like
pay
you
to
did
come
it.
watch Natural Geographic on the
Right.
screen right now.
And it is funny too because they both of those movies came out in 2019. Insane when you really look back at
Oh
2019, and
wow,
we had Sonic, Jurassic Park, John Wick 3, The Lion King, Endgame, Game of Thrones ended,
that
Rise
was
of
a crazy
Skywalker
year.
was out. Insane. And then the world ended for a while.
That's true. At the
But
end, yeah,
like, yeah, that first one made 319 million, surprising pretty much everyone who wasn't like us. Like,
you're right.
and by us, I don't even mean you and me. I mean like millennials and people who
Correct.
grew up with it and were like, well, duh, it's a slam dunk.
Yeah.
The second one, even with the pandemic and people returning to theaters, made 405 million.
Hmm.
So it's just going up.
It is. This
And
one's
you know,
opening
you
is in par, is in line with two, and I think this is going to have legs. It's like it's going to be there for a minute because there's not many other kids films. People, parents are choosing Sonic over Mufasa. Like they're not choosing Mufasa, so it's going to be that they kind of go with.
and part of that too is like, well, like we were, I mean, I was 10 when the first Lion King animated came out, and granted, I was 10 when I was playing Sonic, but then like the people who now
Yeah,
grew up with like Shadow and Sonic and all these other characters, they're now the people who also have kids and are going to they want to go have the same.
I'll
They're going to
say,
see something for the first time
yeah,
and introduce their
I
kids to
think
it.
Sonic's done a better job of staying in the zeitgeist than even before the movies. Like the games were still present. Like they were coming up with some new versions of
Cartoon,
the characters.
comics, it was
Yeah.
always there.
Whereas Lion King, the movie sort of stopped, and unless you have great parents, which most some people do, when like I'm going to introduce this to you on Disney Plus, but even still, that's a one-off. That's one thing that you have versus Sonic that's sort of ingrained in your DNA. It's just a very different feel where kids like, I want to go see Sonic. Yeah, I don't care about the lion.
And it is also very like no one asked for the Godfather Part 2 of The Lion King, where we do a prequel
Right,
and a sequel at the same time, and everyone asked for Shadow. Like it is a
correct,
very interesting
correct.
thing to see. Because I mean that first Lion King made $1.6 billion. And it is interesting when you look at that time. We weren't quite as like fatigued on live action Disney. We had Aladdin earlier in that year too, which
Mm-hmm.
also made $1 billion. Um, but nothing else came out around it. I think the week after was
Right.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and like 3 weeks before, at the top of July, was Spider-Man: Far From Home. So
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't that much. And it is
Right.
kind of funny to now be like, yeah, you're going up against like Wicked's in whichever week. Gladiator 2 is still out. Sonic 3 is obviously doing explosive. So you do just have a lot more fighting against it.
Options. Yeah, there's a
And
lot
I
more that you're fighting against.
and I don't think it's a Disney problem because Moana 2 did very well. There's still things people are
Right.
very excited about when Disney comes out,
I
but
think
I
these live
think
actions might be done though, because Mermaid didn't do that well either, and there was a groundswell sort of around that.
it was
I think
still like 800 mil, I think, but
no, they only made like 600
oh,
million.
well, that still sounds like a
That's
lot.
still good. I mean, that's still a lot, but for how much those movies cost, especially that movie cost to make,
I mean, there's also that parody. This movie, Sonic 3, was 122 million and like 200 million for Lion King. So it's an uphill
correct.
battle for
It is
Mufasa.
very
And we know
and
how well
they're
Mufasa
getting
does going uphill.
they're
He gets
getting
thrown off.
well done, and they're getting mauled. Like it's not even like it's almost two to
Nope.
one.
I think I made the
Um,
joke when we saw Craven, but Sonic's going to kill more lions than Craven
mhm.
did.
Yeah,
Um, it's so awesome to see this like weird switch in a weird way where I'm like, I love Disney and I love their movies, but there's just a part of me that's like, yes,
they used to be
Sonic
automatic, and now it's kind of
wins.
cool that yeah, like some of the other things that are outside the
Hell
zeitgeist are winning.
yes.
Yeah,
The Bart Simpson to Nintendo's Mickey Mouse from the
Ex-
90s is going to
yeah,
beat The Lion King. Awesome.
yeah.
I want both of these movies to do well. I really do, but man, it just makes that stupid kid in me who like saw Sonic at the mall growing up and bought the Burger King toys and read the comics just be like, "Yes! Yes! I told all y'all when you thought I was crazy because Sonic Adventure 2 was good. I told y'all."
Yeah,
Um yeah, I'm very excited for more. I'm
I
very
am
excited
too.
that's doing well. The highest Rotten Tomatoes score of the franchise, one of the highest of the year at 98%. It is just
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is like as we said. I think the story has grown up, and I think now this is the first one that feels like it's the least kids family movie of them all, and I think that's helping the franchise as it goes along.
and they really gave you everything you wanted. They did the songs, they
Hmm.
did the beats, like every like fandom piece of this was there. There
Yeah,
is no like, I want to hear that Live and Learn song. It's like, no, it was in it. They did it. They did the song.
it's there.
Did they do it from start to finish like I wanted? No, but they did it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
um, I think that's the show. I think that's it. So that's it for us, folks. Have a great holiday. We'll probably see
yes.
everybody in the new year. But until then, you can follow us on Hollywood Already Did It at TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and everywhere else. And Terrence's YouTube channel has all of their TV shows and reactions to videos that he does. And that's it. I'm at always, as always, Blake, and he's at Terrence Tatum. And we'll see everybody next time.
Later.